Why are more people boldly speaking out against Israel, including countries that have long remained silent, neutral, or even supportive of it? What has changed? Since October 2023, the world has witnessed what is considered the most devastating humanitarian crisis in modern times. Over 35,000 Palestinians have been killed, the majority of whom are women and children. Images of the victims, destroyed hospitals, and children who have lost their entire families have spread widely on social media, uncensored, and this has made it difficult for anyone to remain silent. By May 2024, 140 countries had supported a UN resolution for a ceasefire. More notably, countries like South Africa took Israel to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, on charges of genocide. So this is no longer just a political issue, it is a matter of humanity. The world is beginning to realize supporting justice for Palestine does not mean rejecting peace, but rejecting oppression. And more people are choosing not to remain silent witnesses. So in this video, we will explore why Israel is beginning to lose support. Keep watching. Since Israel's counterattacks on Gaza began in October 2023, civilian casualties have risen sharply. According to Gaza's Ministry of Health, over 54,000 Palestinians have been killed, with the majority being women and children. UNICEF estimates that more than 50,000 children have been killed or injured since the conflict began, illustrating a severe humanitarian crisis. Israel's military actions have also been brutal, targeting densely populated civilian areas. For example, on October 31, 2023, an Israeli airstrike on the Jabalia refugee camp killed more than 120 people, most of them women and children. Human Rights Watch reported that this attack had no clear military target, rendering it an unlawful attack under international law. Additionally, Israeli forces opened fire on civilians waiting for food aid in Rafah, killing dozens. On June 2nd, at least 3 people were killed and dozens injured when Israeli troops opened fire near an aid distribution center. This incident drew international condemnation and calls for an independent investigation by the United Nations. These actions have triggered global outrage and increased diplomatic pressure on Israel, with many countries reassessing their support due to the continued human rights violations. Meanwhile, Israel has consistently violated international law by building and expanding illegal settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. These actions not only infringe on the rights of Palestinians, but also defy United Nations resolutions and international conventions. On December 23, 2016, the UN Security Council passed Resolution 2334, declaring that Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories since 1967, including East Jerusalem, have no legal validity and constitute a flagrant violation of international law. The resolution also demanded that Israel immediately halt all settlement activities. However, in May 2025, Israel announced plans to legalize and construct 22 new settlements in the West Bank, including 9 new settlements and the formal recognition of 12 previously unauthorized settlement outposts. This move was condemned by the international community, including the United Kingdom and Jordan, as illegal and a threat to the two-state solution. Even more concerning, the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in a historic ruling in July 2024, declared Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories to be illegal and called on Israel to end the occupation as soon as possible. The ICJ also emphasized that other countries have a duty not to recognize or assist in maintaining this illegal situation. Israel's continued actions reflect a refusal to comply with international law and raise serious questions about its commitment to a peaceful resolution and human rights. Additionally, the changing global geopolitical landscape has seen the rise of new powers challenging the traditional dominance of the West, particularly on the Israel-Palestine issue. Countries like China, Russia, and other BRICS members are now playing a more active role in voicing support for Palestine and criticizing Israel's actions. For example, in November 2023, BRICS issued a joint statement condemning Israeli attacks in Gaza and calling for an immediate ceasefire, marking the bloc's strong stance on the crisis. Following that, South Africa filed a case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in December 2023, accusing Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. This move was supported by various global South countries, including Malaysia, Chile, and Bolivia, which also expressed intent to intervene in the case. These developments reflect a global power shift, where developing nations are increasingly bold in challenging injustice and voicing support for human rights, without relying solely on Western powers. The world is now moving toward multipolarity, where voices from the global South play a crucial role in shaping international narratives and actions on critical issues like the Israel-Palestine conflict. At the same time, a wave of protests and widespread public opinion shifts are now a major force, prompting many countries to withdraw support for Israel. From the streets of Asia, Europe, and the United States, the voices of the people are growing louder in demanding justice for Palestine and condemning Israel's actions in Gaza. In Western Europe, support for Israel is at an all-time low. In the United States, public opinion is increasingly divided. Nearly 53% of Americans now view Israel negatively, up from 42% in 2022. Support for Palestine among Democrats has also grown, with 49% supporting Palestine compared to 38% for Israel. Massive protests have also erupted worldwide. In the United States, nearly 12,400 pro-Palestine protests were recorded from October 2023 to June 2024, making it the largest wave of foreign policy-related protests in modern U.S. history. In the United Kingdom, over 300,000 people marched in London in November 2023, demanding a ceasefire and an end to military support for Israel. This public pressure has forced governments around the world to reassess their relationships with Israel. Support for Israel is no longer seen as a strategic necessity, but is increasingly viewed as a political liability that could trigger public outrage. And it's not just ordinary citizens. In recent years, more celebrities and influential global figures have openly expressed their support for Palestine, signaling a major shift in the stance of prominent personalities. This shift demonstrates growing awareness among celebrities about the humanitarian crisis in Palestine, as well as public and fan pressure to speak out against injustice. One notable example is the change in stance by British journalist and talk show host Piers Morgan. Previously known as a strong supporter of Israel, Morgan has now openly criticized Israel's actions in Gaza. In an interview, he stated that Israel's attacks on Gaza have gone too far and described them as inhumane. Morgan also called for international journalists to be allowed into Gaza to report on the real situation on the ground. This change of stance shows how powerful the humanitarian crisis in Gaza has been in influencing the views of individuals who once supported Israel. Since the Oslo Accords in 1993, hopes for a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine have often ended in failure. Israel is accused of negotiating in bad faith while continuing to expand illegal settlements despite diplomatic efforts. Israel's political leadership under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is now under intense pressure, both domestically and internationally, prompting many countries to reconsider their ties with Israel. Domestically, Netanyahu faces strong criticism over his handling of the war in Gaza, including from former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who accused him of prolonging the conflict for political gain. Barak has urged Israel to support a US-backed ceasefire plan and to prioritize diplomatic solutions. Netanyahu is also facing a constitutional crisis over efforts to weaken the judiciary, including the dismissal of the head of the Domestic Security Agency, Shin Bet, which was overturned by the Supreme Court. These actions have raised concerns about the erosion of democracy in Israel. Internationally, countries like Germany, France, and the Netherlands have begun criticizing Israel's actions in Gaza and are considering reviewing their trade and military ties. The world is now watching with open eyes. The suffering of the Palestinian people can no longer be hidden behind the excuse of the right to self-defense. With tens of thousands dead, images of children killed in the rubble, and the starving civilians left without aid, the voice of justice can no longer be silenced. When the people rise, celebrities speak out, world leaders take action, and international institutions drag Israel into court. It sends a clear message. Impunity is no longer guaranteed, and the world is no longer willing to be complicit in oppression.